Hi, my name's Dan, aka Daydreamer Dan. I'm a variety streamer on Twitch who's trying to get into cooking. In order to inspire myself with new recipes that I'd like to learn, I decided to try and recreate dishes from various video games that I like to play. During this particular cooking stream, I attempted to recreate a dish from a game that I've recently gotten really obsessed with, the Battle Royale game, Fortnite. The dish I'm talking about was the Pizza Party item, a consumable item that was introduced in Chapter 3 Season 1 of Fortnite. This is DLC, downloadable cuisine with Daydreamer Dan. So what is the Pizza Party item? Well, back in the beginning of Chapter 3, this was a rare item that could be found randomly on the map or could be purchased by the Tomato Head NPC in Tilted Towers. On the box it has the logo of Uncle Pete's Pizza Pit, and once thrown on the ground, it allows you and your teammates to eat up to 8 slices for additional health and shield. The in-game description of the item is, a big box of Slurpshroom pizza for you and your friends. Slurpshrooms are blue mushrooms that can be found throughout the Fortnite map in bunches that allow you to get a small amount of shield as well. This is the reason why the mushrooms on the pizza have a blue tint to them. As a side note, there also is a Pizza Party emote that is available, but this appears to be a different pizza. The one in the emote appears to have pepperoni or sliced tomatoes on top, as opposed to the Slurpshroom mushrooms. I actually had this idea to make the pizza for a while, since the beginning of the season, but to my luck, I just so happened to schedule the livestream to cook the pizza 5 days after the first season ended, and the pizza was no longer an available item. Good job, Dan. But I was still excited to try and make this because I never made a pizza before by hand. First thing I had to do though was try to figure out what the toppings were on the pizza. From the promotional photos, the most obvious topping was the mushrooms. Obviously, the blue tint was going to make it a bit more difficult because there aren't that many edible blue mushrooms readily available at your local grocery store, and some that aren't necessarily meant for just consumption. Besides that, there was a small green speck at the top which I thought was green pepper. However, one could also make an argument that it could be green onion. The most confusing topping, however, were the yellowish, whitish blobs that were all over the pizza. I thought maybe it could be some sort of cheese, but that didn't seem right. The ingredient that I ended up with was sliced cooked chicken. Mushroom, chicken, and green pepper sound like a pretty decent flavor combination to me. Besides the toppings, it appears that the sauce is red sauce, both from the thin line of red that appears right below the crust, as well as the logo of Uncle Pete's Pizza Pit dripping with something red. Let's hope that's red sauce. But now it's time for the actual cooking. We started off with the pizza crust. I've never made a homemade pizza crust before, and I had plans to buy all the separate ingredients to make the pizza crust myself. However, while I was at the grocery store, I actually found a local company called Weizenburgers that had a pizza crust mix pre-made. Normally I'm skeptical about buying these pre-made mixes, but this one seemed pretty solid when I looked at the ingredient list. I'll put it up on the screen right now for you to judge yourself. Before we even begin the mix though, make sure to preheat your oven up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit and grease a 12-inch pizza pan. I don't have a pizza stone or a proper pizza pan even, so I had to put down some aluminum foil and spray it down with some oil instead. Then, pour your mix into a large bowl along with some hot tap water. You don't want the water to be too hot because that can actually kill the yeast that's inside of the mix, so make sure that your water isn't boiling hot. Begin to stir the mix and the water together with a fork until completely blended. The instructions said about 30 strokes, which... Once completely blended, form the dough into a ball and then grease it with about a tablespoon of oil. Put the dough back in the bowl, cover it up, and then place it in a warm place. While the instructions on the package actually says about 5 minutes, I ended up keeping mine aside for nearly an hour. 30 minutes actually ended up with a pretty good rise, but it definitely didn't double in size, which is what I was looking for. While we're waiting for the dough to rise, now is a good time to start working on that sauce. The recipe I used for the homemade pizza sauce was inspired by one I found on Food Charlatan by someone named Karen. Link will be in the description below. It's actually really nice because she also had a no-cook version if you'd like a quick 5-minute pizza sauce as well. But we're going to take our time and go for the long version today. To start off, we're going to add all of the spices into a small bowl. 2 tablespoons of dried oregano, 1 teaspoon of dried basil, half a teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of crushed red pepper. I heard 8 teaspoons of Dr. Pepper. Sonny, do you not know that the traditional Italian way to make spaghetti sauce is where you just get a whole liter of Dr. Pepper and just pour that on top of whatever you're eating? After bringing all the spices together, begin to preheat a medium-sized skillet and once hot, add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. At this point, you can also add a third cup of onions into the hot skillet if you'd like to saute them until they're brown, but I didn't really want to use onions for my recipe today. I moved on to the next step where I added 1 tablespoon of minced garlic and the spice concoction that we came up with earlier. Let those flavors fuse together, sauteing and stirring them for about a minute or until it becomes fragrant. Then stir in 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. At this point, your kitchen should be smelling absolutely fantastic. After letting the paste heat thoroughly, add a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes. Break down the tomatoes with a spoon and bring it to a simmer over a medium to low medium heat. Let this cook for anywhere between 5 and 30 minutes. The longer you simmer, the more those flavors will be able to fuse together. Since we are now waiting on both the sauce and the crust, now is actually a good time to start prepping your toppings as well. I started off by grabbing 1 large green pepper and dicing it into small squares, like how it looked in the game. Also, hi sweet animals. Then I sliced 5 mushrooms. I definitely only really needed 2 though, and threw them into a Pyrex dish. Now is the time to add the slurp into the Slurpshroom. I thought blue food dye would be a nice way to get that blue mushroom look without necessarily having to buy any mushrooms that were naturally blue. During the stream, I went a bit liberal with my blue dye though. Oh. Oh god, I shouldn't have touched it. Oh god, I shouldn't have touched it. Oh god, I shouldn't have touched it. What? I look like I fingered an avatar. With that image now burned into your mind, I started mixing the dye into the mushrooms. I would recommend about 1 drop of dye for every 2 whole mushrooms, and if you need help spreading the dye a little bit, put a very, very small amount of water to help spread it. Once all done, congratulations, you now have some homemade slurpshrooms. Is it gonna turn our mouths blue? Oh my god, I didn't even think about it. After cutting the pepper and bluing the mushrooms, now it's time to begin grating the cheese. For this pizza, I had a block of sharp cheddar and some fresh mozzarella. Dan blew himself on Twitch, yeah. Sorry guys. Ooh, my cheese! But in the future, I may not use fresh mozz anymore because it's a bit difficult to grate. Uh-oh. Use sliced mozzarella. Who can say where the wind blows? Chicken, mushroom, and tears. Yeah, that's where that extra salt comes from. We got the salt, we got the fat, we got the acid, and we got the sadness. That's the 4 different pieces, right? Also, yeah, I wish I knew about that too. About 30 minutes have passed at this point, so I decided to check on our sauce. While it was delicious, it was still pretty acidic because of the fresh tomatoes that we used. Woo! It's a little acidic. Oh my Jesus Lord. Tastes like I'm licking a battery, but like a really good battery. If you end up in this situation as well, just make sure to add some sugar into your mix. I'd start off with a ½ teaspoon and then continue adding more sugar to your taste so that the sauce ends up more sweet as opposed to acidic. Once you added your spoonful of sugar, start to move the entirety of your sauce over to a blender. Another quick side note, if you like a chunkier sauce, you can usually skip this step. But I wanted to try something a bit more smooth to match what we saw in the pizza in-game. Move the sauce over to a blender and puree it until it is smooth. Back to the toppings, we had our peppers and our mushrooms ready, but I still needed to deal with the yellowish blobs on the pizza. So it was about time to slice up some chicken tenderloins, I'd say about 2 for the pizza, into small cubes and then cooking them over a medium heat in a skillet. Added about a teaspoon of garlic salt as well as some pepper in order to give it more flavor, but this is completely up to you. Another 30 minutes passed by at this point and we were ready to roll out our dough. As a heads up, this is the first time I ever worked with pizza dough. Hopefully you do a better job than I do when it comes to pressing the dough down over the pan. Who's your daddy? Not the most graceful way, if I'm going to be completely honest. And then make sure to pinch the edges to form a rim on the outside of the pizza for a lovely pizza crust. Now it was time to put everything together. I started off with the homemade sauce, sprinkled on the cheese, placed some of the cooked chicken, threw on some green pepper, and finally placed our lovely blue mushrooms. All of this went into the lowest rack of my oven to cook for about 10 minutes or until the crust became a golden brown. However, did you see where I messed up? You'll see in about a minute. But before that, we now had some time on stream to kill, so I decided to try and make some chug splash from some impromptu ingredients that were in my fridge. The contenders included some plum flavored soju, orange flower water, pineapple juice, a cerise limon LaCroix, and ranch water. I literally have no idea what ranch water is. My friend left it in our fridge. I don't even use it for this recipe. I just wanted you all to know that I have ranch water. Our impromptu recipe ended up being a mason jar, 1 drop of blue food coloring, 2 shots of soju, around 8 to 10 ounces of LaCroix, 3 dashes of the orange flower water, and a small splash of pineapple juice for some added tang.
It's actually not too bad.
After replenishing some shield, I now had to deal with a small issue.
Okay, so some pluses and some minuses. The mushrooms, very wet. It looks like they are dripping out liquid, and the blue is getting across way more of the pizza. You saute mushrooms first.
Yeah, make sure to saute any veggies that you have on your pizza, because if you don't, they will definitely bleed out any moisture. This happened with the blue dyed mushrooms, so now there was blue all over the pizza. At this point, I was kind of freaking out that the pizza wouldn't turn out well, so I started creating a second pizza with some of the leftover ingredients and an extra pizza crust that I bought just in case if the homemade one didn't work out well. I sauteed the peppers and the mushrooms this time though. However, something strange did happen while we were sauteing the mushrooms. They got bluer. I'm not 100% sure what the science behind this is, but I think it has something to do with the moisture leaving the mushrooms and just concentrating that blue food coloring. But I'm not a color scientist. So, while I threw the backup pizza into the oven, I decided to try the blue bled pizza. I sliced it up into 8 different slices, just like in game, and had my first reactions live on stream.
Crust is not the strongest near the middle. You know, that's not too bad. It still tastes really good. The middle obviously is like a little bit, a little bit weak. Hold on, let's see if we can get a cheese pull. Oh, no. You know, the mushrooms, even though they weren't fully cooked, they were still pretty good. Crust turned out really well.
After about 10 minutes, we pulled out the second pizza as well with the store-bought crust. While the ingredients did look a little bit prettier, I'd say at the end of the day, I would take the homemade crust over the store-bought one.
Is your mouth blue? Let's find out. I'm gonna check myself.
And that's it. You've created the pizza party item from Fortnite. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Like I said at the beginning, I was a little bummed out that this item left Fortnite as soon as I tried to make it live on stream, but I hope that you still all had a really good time watching the chaos and seeing how I ended up pulling off these blue mushrooms. If you don't already follow the live streams, please make sure to follow me over at twitch.tv/daydreamerdan, where you can follow me on my cooking adventure. I'm currently live on Sundays and Wednesdays at 12 p.m. EST and Mondays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. EST. Cooking streams seem to always land on Thursdays, and this upcoming week on April 21st, I'm actually going to try and make gyros based off those that you see in Hades. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to comment below to suggest other dishes that I could potentially make based off your favorite video games. Some future videos I hope you guys can see include the burgers from the newest Kirby game, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and a special video where I tried to cook a Lucky Charms chicken dish based off 5 different random ingredients given to me by people who donated during a charity stream. That's all for now. I'll see you all in the next installment of Downloadable Cuisine. Bye!